Tucker Carlson has released the first portion of never-before-seen surveillance footage taken inside the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. We discussed the contents of that new footage with The Hill's Emily Brooks earlier. You should check that out. But now let's take a look at the media angle and what the media are saying so far about the video dump.
What we saw tonight, Allison, from Tucker is nothing new. He has been trying to sanitize the very real violence that we all saw unfold at the U.S. Capitol in real time for quite some time now. I think what's really notable here is that he had a very key assist from Kevin McCarthy, someone who was at the Capitol on that day, who condemned the violence in the immediate wake of that attack, but has since tried to get back in the good graces of Trump and the MAGA fan base. And so what's so key here is that he helped Tucker Carlson try to rewrite history by giving him this surveillance footage that he denied to actual news organizations. And now Tucker Carlson's back at his usual game of trying to, of lying to his audience about the events of that day.
And here's a response from CBS News this morning.
A bit of a fact check this morning after Fox News host Tucker Carlson aired previously unseen video of the assault on the Capitol on his show last night. What Carlson did is use selected clips from surveillance tapes provided to him by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to claim falsely that journalists and lawmakers lied about the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Scott McFarland is in Washington. Scott, good morning to you. You've been following this very closely. What stood out to you?
Yeah, Tony, good morning. The narrative last night ignores the tens of thousands of pages of court filings we've read and the tonnage of footage already released by the Justice Department and shown in open court. And it ignores the powerful and at times tearful accounts of injured officers who are testifying under oath. Carlson called January 6th, quote, mostly peaceful and meek with a small percent that was violent. He showed limited, edited footage Monday night on his program that draws an audience of 3.5 million viewers and pointed to images of a few protesters shuffling through the halls.
All right, you know what really strikes me about that framing? First of all, the mostly peaceful with some sprinklings of violence. It's the same rationale that's used for the Black Lives Matter protests. And I think that it's true. I mean, obviously, you have millions of people in the streets. There were some instances of violence. They weren't representative of them all. I think it's not necessarily so well applied here when the entire context of the thing is breaking and entering in a building, which was barricaded by police, which everybody knew they weren't supposed to go into, wherein the police were trying to get them out the entire time.
But at that protest, there were thousands,
people outside.
And it is in fact the case that 99% of them were exercising their First Amendment rights. You can disagree with that.
I don't know about 99%, but a lot of them were.
I was there. It was massive. The crowd of people that did not go into the Capitol was massive. Now,
they're not the problem, right? And I think some people even probably went inside once all of the
and that's what I think we see a lot of in this footage, frankly, which is why I think it's helpful.
I think a lot of people went inside once the ramparts were breached because they thought it was maybe permissible. And there was some footage earlier on that was focused on where it looked like cops were just letting people in the building, opening the barricades and things like that. And so I don't fault those people either for being under the impression that they were being allowed to go into the building. However, there is a stark contrast between how Tucker Carlson and some of these conservatives talk about other kind of protests with which they are not ideologically aligned in this one. And something in the milk there ain't clean.
That's all fair. I'm going to give you that one. But because I want to talk about this in greater detail. Because I do think, look, I was there. I witnessed the breaking of windows and doors and all that stuff. Those people should be charged. I have no problem with them all being arrested and being charged. I agree with the characterization of the thing as a riot. It was very bad. I will never underplay how bad it was. It was embarrassing to watch this happening to our Capitol building. All that said, we do see a lot of extra, and I don't like that. Well, this is selective video footage. Well, it's all selective video footage. We're going to sit down and watch 40,000 hours of it. So the fact that we're seeing a lot more video footage where people were just kind of strolling around the Capitol, where the police were not behaving as if they were being like hunted down by the MAGA wing, where members of Congress are not like actually fearing for their lives, where the ostensible leader, to the extent this thing has any leader, doesn't actually have an organized structure, the QAnon shaman is not only being like fighting with police, he's not even being arrested, like attacked by police. They're not doing anything about him. What did you make of that? I mean, we see sometimes, you and I argue about these street videos about, police tackling and sometimes causing lethal harm to people. They didn't do that here. There were like 9 of them hanging out with the guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks who have had a very different relationship with the police when they were law-abiding were very frustrated from the beginning about not just, this is nothing new here. We have seen footage of the police acting non-adversarially with these people on 1/6 all the time. Like that is why I'm struggling with this. This isn't new. We have seen footage of people wandering around in the Capitol. We have seen the footage of people standing in line when there's no reason. There's no docent making you take your turn.
But the commission, the mainstream media, the insistence that this was, one of the worst things that has ever happened, that there were, widespread violence and people fearing for their lives.
But those are mutually exclusive things, right?
Well, they shouldn't be mutually exclusive.
There being some people who just came in, who were just touristing around, does absolutely nothing, which we've all known about and talked about this entire time, has no bearing on the fact that there were also...
we've known about that. Is that reflective in the mainstream coverage?
I only know about it because I watch TV. You know what I mean? I'm not on the 1/6 committee,
Well, you watched some Fox News in addition.
No, I mean, I was indifferent. I was like not that engaged by a lot of this stuff, but one of the hearings that ended up happening, I watched for news value reasons, so none of this footage was new, but none of that has anything to do with the other footage of Congress members crouching down in the congressional chamber and fearing and running down the halls and fearing their safety, or the mobs of people who very much were violent, who had busted down a door and were openly calling for harm to be done to Congress members. That's also true. So, I was willing to hear what Tucker Carlson had to say and to see if there was any footage that was substantively revealing that would change the color of what happened in the Capitol that day. And while I completely take the point that maybe that some of the timelines were off, someone was somewhere 30 minutes after they were supposed to have been there, the Ray Epps stuff, that is interesting, and I'm open to hearing why that's material. But Ray Epps not being where he was supposed to be for 30 minutes at some point in the testimony doesn't change the fact that we all saw a bunch of rioters break down the door to one of our Capitol buildings. A rioter was killed in the process. What do you call it? The noose was hung outside of the Capitol. They were calling for the blood of Mike Pence. All of that happened too.
Law enforcement certainly doesn't seem too worried about it from what we've seen in the additional video footage.
Well, look, I also think that the earlier guest's point that they were dramatically outnumbered is right and true. And that, I don't know, well, what did you expect them to do? To start handcuffing? How many people was each cop was supposed to handcuff and lead to where? Now, I would have liked to have seen, I think, one, there was an issue about whether
they had Jacob Chansley by himself.
Right, but just because in one frame you see one person, their halls are filled with hundreds, thousands, I'm not sure exactly, I don't mean to overestimate, of people. And I don't think there's any dispute that the cops were dramatically outnumbered.
Some of the people who've gone in have said that they believed that they were allowed to be there.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I think some of this video footage would show you why they thought they were allowed to be there.
But what we're talking about now is the mens rea of the cops, why the cops behaved in a way that made people think that they were allowed to be there. And I think that's perfectly reasonable for the cops to understand that there's no jail in the prison. You can't just start locking people up and you're just in a building.
And that reminds me, I want to touch on this before we go. This is probably the most BS part of all of it to me. The idea that releasing this footage undermines the safety or the integrity of the U.S. Capitol in the future, which was what many Democrats and other cable news people who were talking about the threat and the harm of releasing this video footage. So Tucker, at the beginning of Tucker's segment on this, he said that, so this is taken from him for whatever that's worth, he said he spoke to the Capitol Police about releasing this footage, said they were not particularly concerned that it presents future security risks at all. They asked him to make small choices, including blurring like one door, and he did that, and it was fine. From watching this, I don't see how any reasonable person could conclude this is like, oh, now you have like a master plan of the Capitol for your future attack or something.
Yeah, I don't get it from this footage maybe something could be pieced together if you had access to all of the thousands of hours that Tucker Carlson has, but unless the claim is that Tucker Carlson is going to leak that or personally plan an insurrection himself, I don't really get it. I also did a quick perusal to see if there had been any people in the liberal media who were making these kind of claims that had followed up and said, well, this is the threat that we were worried about. This is what could happen with the footage that was released. And so far, at least, I haven't seen any of that.
Nada. So. We got one more clip to play from CNN. Let's watch.
Several times saying essentially, this is the footage that you had access to, parts of it that the committee did not air. Do you want to respond to that? And also, that he said you were a liar and Liz Cheney was a liar and that you guys perpetuated this lie.
Yeah, look, obviously everybody knows, even in their heart, even those that think that or that will say out loud that the insurrection didn't happen, they know in their heart that it did. So you can call me a liar all you want. I just know that means we're over the target typically. Look, I can look at myself in the mirror. I know Tucker Carlson, he has a lot more money than I do, but it's probably much harder for him to wake up and look in the mirror because he knows what he's doing to a country that I've sworn to defend both in uniform and in Congress, that he's never taken that similar oath. So that's fine. Not everybody has to take that oath, but he hasn't, and I think that's clear. But look, in terms of saying that we've hidden this footage, we had one of the most transparent hearings in history with the most footage we've ever shown in history, and every single, almost, witness that came in front of us was a very partisan witness. They were all Republicans that came in front of this committee.
All right, the weird framing by the MSNBC, the CNN host aside, what's so frustrating is the guest makes the point that the Democrats were at least thoughtful enough to use Republicans in their hearing. That is true. So that there couldn't be these accusations that you shouldn't listen to them because they are self-interested.
Right. Kinzinger is ostensibly a Republican.
Sure, but then the CNN hosts go and undermine all of that credibility that the 1-6 committee tried to build up by saying, LOL, isn't he ridiculous?
Yeah.
But look,
Don Lemon specifically.
Don Lemon specifically, yeah. But to the point of their guest, do you think that this framing that Tucker Carlson is going for, which is it's a patriotism to break into the Capitol, it's showing your love of country to want to break into the Capitol and give yourself a self-guided tour? It's because you appreciate our government.
I don't know if that's what he said.
He literally said in the clip that it's
that's
patriotic.
What they were thinking.
These were patriots.
He said that was what they were thinking,
right.
Not that was good.
Right. Well, no. That's obviously implicit in what he's trying to say. Why talk about the patriotism of someone who just committed a crime if you're not just trying to excuse the fact of them committing this crime? So do you think this framing that breaking into the Capitol is good, actually, if in your heart you really admire the Capitol? Because I got to tell you, there's any number of communists, socialists, leftists, Antifas who love America and want it to be better and would want to do all kinds of things in the Capitol.
I can only speak for myself. Breaking into the Capitol, very bad. I don't like when windows are smashed and things are set on fire, whether it's the Capitol or the church on the other side of Lafayette Square or your convenience store in your neighborhood or anything. I am very, very much against the rioting, and it is bad, and they shouldn't have gone into the Capitol, and they should be prosecuted to a sensible. That Jacob Chansley was held in solitary confinement for a very long time. As is characteristic of the criminal justice system, often the punishment does not fit the crime, and that's true for these, might be true for many of these people, and is true for many of non-political people. We would agree on that, some of that stuff. So I don't want to downplay the badness of January 6th. However, it has also been overplayed as the most horrible thing that has ever happened to our democracy on many mainstream news outlets.
Do you agree that Tucker Carlson is downplaying the events on January 6th?
I think he's... Well, no. He said he acknowledged that they smashed windows and they shouldn't have done that, and they entered. I don't know what he thinks about what kind of. Certainly, there are some on the right doing it. I don't know if Tucker's doing it himself. I think it is helpful to have a little bit of a correction to how focused on January 6th the mainstream media has been.
All right. Well, by focusing on January 6th more with new footage, apparently that's we're trying.
He's trying to set the record straight. I don't know that I agree with all the conclusions he's making, but decide for yourself. More Rising right after this.